Perception of their children's participation and general influence on the family decision-making process when purchasing in 14 different product categories. Different survey findings indicating that children exercise quite a strong influence on the family decision-making processes, particularly for products relevant to them like cereal, juice, soft drinks and mobile phones. To discuss the topic with us, we are now joined via Zoom by reputation brand specialist Tshepo Matseba, as well as the founder and chief architect of DNA brand architect Sylvester Chauke. Good morning and thank you so much for making time for us, gentlemen. I want to start off with this one, and that is speaking about the strong influence that the children really have on their family. Sylvester, let's start off with you.
I must say that it's been quite interesting to see this brand take off so much around the world. And I must say, this conversation around pester power, or what we also sometimes call, often in boardrooms, the nag factor, utilizing children to nag their parents to get them products or services that they require, is an interesting marketing tactic that has been used for many years across many brands. Because obviously there's a strong sense that when kids want something, their parents will always do their best to give it to them. And I think that's such an interesting play on what we want to get as marketers out of the buyers or parents in this case, and how we want to engage the actual users, and in this case, children. So It's an interesting tactic. It has been very controversial over time, but a very well-known tactic to use in marketing to get your brand or product out there, as we have seen quite recently.
Yeah, I want to maybe just bring in some context here for those that are still catching up with the discussion. Really, where this is coming out of is what we saw, an energy drink that had, it really was quite a marketing strategy, right? Where the pricing of this energy drink was incredibly high. And I suppose what you had was teenagers saying to their families, I want that energy drink. And then you saw in malls and retail stores, parents flocking in. It really was reminiscent of Black Friday images, right? One wonders where you draw the line, though, and Tshepo, this is where I bring you in. Where do you draw the line between responsible marketing, this genius marketing strategy, and really, I suppose, irresponsible, perhaps even manipulative marketing tactics?
Yeah, it's a very difficult line to draw. I think that parents are under a significant amount of pressure across the board beyond this energy drink. If as a parent your child does not have a smartphone or access to a digital device of some sort, there must be significant pressure. And especially when you look at our market where there's this high levels of unemployment, the economy being at where it is currently, a lot of businesses closing down in the last 2 years. That tells you a story that parents are under pressure. Marketers, of course, have taken advantage of the opportunity or the influence of the child, because now children are actually opinion makers. They themselves are social media influencers. In fact, there are parents who buy cars on the basis of the insights that they get from their children. When it comes to this specific one around this energy drink, I think, unfortunately, marketers and communicators and the very influencers that we're seeing online currently are being actually a little bit naughty and irresponsible in that they do not communicate the fine print. And the fine print here is that this is not good for children 18 years, less than 18 years old. It may also necessarily, from a health perspective, be good for pregnant women, but also for certain patients or adults with certain preconditions. And so this is where, as marketers and communicators, we fail to articulate that little fine print that may save someone's life, or that may prevent someone from acquiring a chronic disease or actually worsening their existing conditions. And so maybe the opportunity that I talk about for marketers, for communicators, for brand managers in the organizations that the marketers represent, here the opportunity is to begin to be involved in cause-related marketing, responsible marketing, not in the sense of the typical CSI, but actually doing the right thing where the business and the brand gains, the society gains, the shareholder gains, but also the user gains by using the product responsibly.
Well, an interesting development there, and also considering, of course, Naledi, that Malisela Tefo, who has been disbarred, is still roped. But we're continuing with this conversation, the one that we started just before we crossed over to Griselda Lewis, and that is looking into the influence that children have over their parents. Of course, the conversation starting on the back of that frenzy over that drink at at a specific retail store, actually, where many people were queuing up, parents and their children. Joining us this morning for that conversation is Tshepo Matseba, who's a brand specialist, and also we are joined by founder and chief architect of DNA Architect, Sylvester Chauke. And Sylvester, I want to pick up from where Tshepo ended, and that is, so on one end, we speak about the pressure that the children put on the parents, but what about the parents actually wanting to be relevant and also associating themselves with some things that are trendy, like this drink, for instance?
Absolutely true. The need for parents to still discern the same way that they would any product.
Okay, we seem to have a problem there with that line to Sylvester. We're going to try and see if we can re-establish that. But Tshepo, if you got the question, can you jump in on that?
Oh, yes. So there is obviously a pressure for everyone on social media around the world.
To their people, yeah.
Okay, Sylvester, do we have you back? We lost you there for a second. If you can just pick up from right at the beginning around the pressure that the kids put on their parents, but also parents themselves wanting to be relevant and wanting to be associated with trendy products.
I think it is important to remember that parents can't disown their role and their responsibility with regards to what access their kids get, whatever the product or the service is. It's going to be quite important that they still practice a discerning approach in what it is that they give access to their kids. And as you know, whether it's candy or snacks, cool drinks or gadgets, parents still need to be able to ascertain whether is this good for my child or is this not good for my child. And in fact, for me, what was quite interesting was that I was fascinated by why is this trending so much and what makes this really special. And I can see that what this brand has been able to do really well is being able to get young people to support what they've seen as the underdog. We are young people that are building this brand. Please join us in building it. And I think young people are connecting to that so much more. But it doesn't take away, absolutely, the need for parents to still discern what it is that they are, that they give access to their children.
I'm wondering if there's something to be said about just how brands and marketing specialists such as yourself target a particular group, right? I mean, you look at this brand and you immediately think that the conversation with parents was certainly parents that want something to aspire to. And we're not talking about parents that can easily afford big fancy cars here that were rushing into the stores to buy an energy drink that was close to 1,000 Rand in some cases, right? So what happens there? How is it that you're able to, in selling a brand, tell people that they can't afford something, that they should have it?
Well, it's an aspirational issue, isn't it? That everyone aspires to something, whether we can afford or not. If you look at brands, major German brands, car vehicles, cell phones, mobile devices, people who actually can't afford are actually part of the communication mix when we communicate. And that's because they are able, even though lack of affordability doesn't mean you can't access the funds. So people make loans for this sort of expenses. But I must say, if we go back to that discussion about how parents aspire towards a certain lifestyle, how they want the pressure to be the first to post, to influence a community, to say, I'm the coolest parent, I'm relevant, I'm here. And then, therefore, I go and I spend $400 or $500 or 1,000 Rand on a single unit of an energy drink or hydration drink. It's really in financial terms, the financial advisor would say this is irresponsible spending because that money could go and be used for something else. But the culture and the story behind this specific brand with two individuals who were rivals in a boxing match that settled things through the feast in a very aggressive fashion, later on becoming friends and capitalizing on a market and working with people and young people to create this brand is amazing. And that's the story behind this. That's the reason why there's such a frenzy. Note that there's a young man actually who is said to be reselling used bottles of this brand, Prime, and making a significant amount of money reselling used bottles. And it tells you about the culture, the type of communication, the type of people that individuals are consuming, that they're even willing to buy used bottles, and that tells you that it's not just about the product. It's a story. It's a feeling. It is a cool factor beyond really the product itself.
Just a quick one from both of you, and just in conclusion, considering of course that now there is this ripple effect, we've seen that at the store there's stock out, some people have stocked up. The purpose also being to resell at a later stage, and we saw what happened, for instance, on the online shopping site Takealot, where the product went up to around 1.2 thousand. Do you see it having a ripple effect in for purposes of this conversation, I'll say a black market? Tshepo, we'll start off with you, and then Sylvester will get your take.
Yeah, there are already, in a sense, a lot of fun activities happening around Township Pakistani store. There's an influencer actually who tells a story of how he's making a phone call to his brother to actually start production immediately. Because this is such an easy one to replicate. So I think that the black market opportunities are already there. But what's more fascinating is that it creates an education opportunity around this type of product and the product ranges. When you look at products such as More Fire, beginning to gain impetus in the conversations on social media. And then it raises important questions about responsible usage of products, responsible marketing, but responsible parenting, because we can't delegate parenting responsibilities to marketers and communicators.
And Sylvester, your take?
I think the fact that there's demand for this product is a marketer's dream, right? Because there's demand, then there will be different ways that people can be able to have access to. And because of this continued demand, it will definitely open up that much more engagement within our communities across the board, whether black or white. But I absolutely do agree that this demand will obviously need to be met somehow, and that's where the opportunities lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, so fascinating. Thank you so much to our guests, Tshepo and Sylvester. An absolutely interesting discussion. And we're keen to hear your thoughts as well on Twitter. We're asking the question, just how much pressure is placed on you as a parent by your kids to buy certain brands at the agenda_SABC. Really keen to hear your thoughts.